most of us are living from our unquestioned assumptions. Until something happens in our experience that causes us to question, to move from that place of unquestioned assumptions to acknowledging that something in our experience needs our attention. Something breaks open, and in our own direct experience, we say to ourselves, I really don't know anything at all. There is a recognition of why there can't be an answer to be found here. If you come to terms with the fact that there is no answer, the quality of seeking has dissipated. The flame has gone out, so to speak. But beyond language, there is a wordless reality. Whatever it is that may appear, whatever it is that may not appear, it's all part and parcel. The necessary movements of consciousness as it unfolds itself and expresses itself in infinite form and variety, it's all just interacting with itself, and you don't need to be any one way. Who you fundamentally are is untouchable.
Welcome to the Nonduality podcast. Nic Higham here from nisargayoga.com. In this episode, our guest is Bradley Bemis, an Orlando-based spiritual author, teacher, and guide. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you. And great to be here. I really enjoy talking about these things.
On your website, awakeningintolife.com, you write about the fluid nature of the awakening process and describe it as a continuum of conscious awareness. You've identified 5 distinct stages of the spiritual journey: sleeping, seeking, awakening, deepening, and ceasing. Let's begin by exploring sleeping.
Yeah, the continuum of conscious awareness is really just something that I started to put together based on my own experience, a recognition that there isn't a place that we can stand with any certainty. Really, the first stage of this process, we could call it, is sleeping. It's just an acknowledgement, really, that most of us are living from our unquestioned assumptions. It's a conditioned state of mind. We take all of our cues, all of our social cues, all of our psychological cues from our culture. And we become someone as a result of all those cues. A person is developed in response to society and life and circumstance. And there might be some sense of dissatisfaction and disappointment and disillusionment somewhere inside them, but they're still looking out into the world as a way to sort of try to resolve it. Until something happens in our experience that causes us to question, to move from that place of unquestioned assumptions to acknowledging that something in our experience needs our attention. That's pretty much where most of us hang out. And until there's that impetus to actually investigate. So that's sort of the sleeping stage.
Many of us are sleepwalking until something happens which seems to dislodge things, seems to unsettle the status quo. We begin to start asking questions like, what is this all about? What's the purpose of my life? Questioning, like, what is going on? Maybe a thirst, an appetite for truth.
Which is the segue right into the seeking component of things. One of the reasons why I really felt it was important to express it in that way is because, let's say there's an end to the path. Let's just say that this representation of the end referred to as ceasing, sort of at the end of the path, one recognizes that one has always been the truth, right? And we have never not been the truth. And so when that realization dawns, when it settles in as an integrated recognition, we look upon sleeping as there was no sleeping occurring. It was never there. And yet, paradoxically, when we're in that place of sleeping, we think that there's someone that has to wake up. And so we set out on this journey of awakening with the goal of waking up, But that's not really what happens. And, as the process unfolds, as you had said, that begins to demonstrate itself as being more true than the search for awakening. And so you come back to this place where it's more like, in this moment, I appear to be sleeping. In this moment, I appear to be seeking. In this moment, like, it's just, these are the dynamic expressions or manifestations of experience as it's occurring now, as it's blossoming, that's what's alive, is whatever is here, whatever's moving, however consciousness is presenting itself. And so the end of the path is more a complete acceptance of the whole realm of experience, but it doesn't feel that way or seem that way or look that way when we're in this place that we would refer to as sleeping.
Yes. So in a way, would you say that sleep, how you're characterizing it here, is forgotten awakefulness?
Yeah, absolutely. The appearance of a process of forgetting. There's no forgetting. There's only what's here. If what's here is the appearance of forgetting, then that's what's here.
Yeah, life can be anything. But typically, there's the expectation, which is an appearance, that life should be a particular way.
That's exactly the key right there. That's the primary, that's what's driving the experience of the sleeper is desire, demand, expectation. Right? That's what's present in that state. There isn't an answer to be found here. There is a recognition of why there can't be an answer. And that's really what the whole ceasing stage really sort of expresses or exposes us to. But beyond language, there is a wordless reality. And that then, once that's seen, then language becomes a tool. Then we can play with language. We can be like an artist in a paintbrush and just letting life express itself through language in a beautiful way. But we never mistake the words for reality. Yeah. It requires us to take an interest in our own experience to discover this. And that, that can be our entryway into the seeking. The quality of seeking, right? To get to that point in our own experience where, there's got to be something better, like that kind of an impetus towards what is that? What I got to find it, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but I've got to get it.
Yeah. So the acknowledgement of maybe a sense of lack or a sense of not having arrived, a sense of not feeling complete, not feeling fulfilled, satisfied, to follow that invitation into that which may seem like the unknown, but there's a readiness at that point, right? To start seeking.
Yeah. I say this carefully, but the ability of someone to break through the veil is dependent upon their willingness, their sincerity, the degree to which they are willing to look. You have to be like one of the old-timey detectives on TV, willing to follow the clues wherever they lead, no matter where that might be. And many of us, in our experience of ourselves, that can be a scary proposition, going back to something you had said earlier. It can be terrifying. So there are many different ways the process of seeking can play out, an infinite myriad of ways. And there can be degrees to that. You might seek one way and spend years devoted to that way and then come to the realization that it didn't hold for you what you had hoped to achieve or whatever it might be. Or you might be walking down the street with this whole set of beliefs in your head, and then you run into somebody and have a conversation with them over a cup of coffee, and you're suddenly exposed to something that is so radically different. So seeking can take place in the physical world. I'm sure, as a therapist, right, you see a lot of people they're trying to find their answers, but they're trying to find the answers in unhealthy, unproductive ways that are really quite damaging to the body, to the mind. So seeking is it's an infinite array of an attempt to get a hold of what's elusive, what feels elusive. Whatever that is, or however that looks, or however that comes across for someone, it's just that sense, like you had said, that sense of lack, that sense there's got to be something. What is the thing? And so all of that lives inside this part of the continuum that we refer to as seeking.
A desire starts to emerge, a desire for more. Something opens, a willingness to look.
To go from sleeping to seeking, we're often seeking in the world. So someone there in our lives who can turn us around so that we're looking here, to draw it inward, invested in finding something here rather than out there, to address that sense of lack, to find that sense of fulfillment. It has to be within this experience of oneself and nowhere else.
Yeah, that seeking energy is fertile, full of potential. While it's fertile energy, can soon become kind of stuck energy, because the nature of seeking is that it latches on to a conclusion, latches on to something which could potentially bring whatever is sought. So we get a new car, and for some time, there's like a cessation of that seeking energy. And so there's a relaxation, there's a calmness, there's a disillusionment of the need to seek. And then lo and behold, what happens, the seeking energy comes back because that thing cannot complete us.
Yeah. It's not sustainable. Because it's still trying to invest itself in the externalization of objects, and that will never satisfy. That ultimately, anything that is invested in the externalization of objects will ultimately demonstrate itself to feel empty. So we're on to the next thing, and then the next thing, and the next thing, and unfortunately, the spiritual journey itself becomes commoditized, just like everything else. It becomes an object, just like everything else, and so that's part of what needs to be redirected or channeled as that opens up, as that seeking quality begins to really take hold. That's when things open up into what we would call awakening. For some people, is a big, explosive fireworks show, and for some people, it takes many, many years of intense work. Something happens where there's a dawning. And so when I talk about awakening in the context of this particular continuum, I'm talking about it in terms of what some other teachers might refer to as a glimpse, or realization, or recognition, or understanding, or seeing through, or piercing the veil. Or there are a lot of different nuances to it too. It's like it doesn't look just one way. Sort of the thematic quality of it is a seeing through, is a recognition that it's sort of like, oops, this isn't what I thought it was. Like it's something breaks open, and in our own direct experience, we say to ourselves, I had it wrong this whole time. Like I thought I understood. I don't know anything. I really don't know anything at all. Like nothing. I am that piercing is it's revelatory and problematic. That's why awakening isn't the end of the continuum.
Sometimes a breakthrough can look like a breakdown, but what's really happening is that the false structure of self is beginning to unravel.
Mm-hmm. Everything you ever thought was true, everything you've invested yourself in, what your whole life has been about, it's all falling apart. Once you've seen this, there's no looking back. There's no turning around and going, oh, I'm just going to go on with my life now. It doesn't work that way. It is. You're on the road. It's happening. You have to learn how to hold yourself within the heart of compassion. Being able to hold yourself in this place where there's an acknowledgement of what's happening. I really don't know I really don't know anything. And as I'm experiencing what that really means, and the terror and the angst and all of this, just to hold, it's okay. You know, to really, to have deep compassion for yourself as you encounter adventure of awakening.
Yeah. And even though there's this urgency for that dropping of the known and the courage to transition into lucidity, there can be this sense of, I'm now moving away from all that I know.
Oh,
do I want to do that? Like,
very much. I know people who come to me that, they're like, what I'm looking for is that constancy of peace. And it's like, well, then you should probably keep looking. That may not be what you find here. Mm. Are you willing to approach that? Because what you may find is you're sacrificing yourself on the altar of truth. There has to be a quality of resilience. Absolutely appropriate to have a teacher or a guide or a therapist. And also, I think that if you have the opportunity to work with a teacher who's also a therapist, working with someone who has one foot in each of those worlds, then I think that is a very beautiful, very, very beautiful, powerful, potent combination, because you can deal with the psychological issues that emerge while also helping continue them down the path so that things continue to open up for you. You're not all, many teachers who are just non-dual teachers will dismiss the psychological implications. And many psychologists will label or, diagnose the spiritual unfolding. So, I'm not saying that either is wrong, but I'm saying that they can be limiting. And by having one foot in each world, being able to address the psychological implications and the spiritual unfolding at the same time, it's a very powerful combination. That is the most useful kind of guide you can have, I think, when you're going through all of this turmoil.
Yes, absolutely. And this is what I see in my work as a therapist, both honoring the pain of being human and providing a safe, accepting space for that pain to unravel. Not medicating it, not trying to get rid of it, simply to explore the nature of all that arises in that shared presence.
On one hand, here I am meeting you where you are in whatever it is that you need. And on the other hand, I know who you are. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing to be concerned about. Who you fundamentally are is untouchable.
Absolutely.
Through awakening, there may still be some distancing. There might still be some avoidance. There might still be a lot of psychological stuff that we don't want to tend to. But as that process continues to unfold, it's sort of the recognition that, well, if I really want this thing called peace, I'm going to have to face myself in ever deeper ways. And so the theme of compassion emerges as to face what I need to face, to do what I need to do, to engage completely in this process. And I think that's really what the deepening process is about, is the willingness to go beyond awakening, to say that's great, but there's a process of integration that has to occur. Even in awakening, people can still feel like, I don't have it. I still don't get it. It comes, it goes, it's gone. So being willing to acknowledge that there's still a lot of stuff happening here. There's more. It's not just seeing through the concepts. There's more. There's got to be a full surrendered expression of heartfelt compassion and attention and acknowledgement of the whole human experience.
Yeah. There are often quite deeply embedded patterns of conditioning. And likewise, there can be this shifting from I am the body-mind, and the body-mind that I am is the subject of experience, to the realization I am not the body-mind, I am awareness. Mm-hmm. Awareness is the subject. And this has been called enlightened duality. There still remains this belief in a subject and object divide. Okay, so we've shifted out of identification with the mind, the body, and have redefined our identity as awareness.
Yeah, that willingness to be human, to not just stop at I am awareness alone, and that's the end of the journey, but to say awareness is aware of, and it's not distinct. There's no distinction there. Let's acknowledge the human experience. experience for what it is. That's all part of the deepening process. And this is not uncommon. For people to go, I am awareness alone, and now you have a new identity. I am awareness alone. That's great. I am awareness alone. Okay. And so what? Like, to me, that's such an important part of the conversation in this deepening stage. You're not going to be able to escape the human experience, no matter how aware your awareness is.
Anything can arise here. Life is infinite possibility, like you are that, and within you can be manifested anything, any feeling, any thought, any experience, any scenario. That does not cease when the sense of all that stuff being me ceases. Or what ceases is the sense that I am limited to, defined and restricted by the transient experiences.
Which really does, it is that quality of ceasing now. And there are a couple of dimensions. One of the dimensions that I focus on with a lot of people is the dimension of again, going into this place of I don't know. Complete acceptance of not being able to know. Because if you know it, if you have a concrete concept in mind about what the truth is, whether it's this or that or some other thing, you only know it with the mind, you only know it in language. And language itself is completely made up. And so whatever answer you have is completely made up. If you've come to terms with the fact that there is no answer, then you can then the quality of seeking has dissipated. The flame has gone out, so to speak. And the other quality of it that's equally as important is that the only thing I can do is bring love to each and every moment. All I can do is to acknowledge what is here, now, in the most compassionate way possible. And it goes even further than that into this place where, whether there's the absence of compassion, the presence of compassion, the absence of love, the presence of love, whatever it is that may appear, whatever it is that may not appear, it's all part and parcel. And now I don't have to chase love. I don't have to be compassionate. Now it's just, there's whatever's here, always, whatever's here. And so that's where the path opens up into being a continuum. Because now whatever's here can include all the previous places that we were. They're all allowed to be here. And it's, you're not at war anymore with yourself or in conflict with yourself. And even if you are at war, even if you are at conflict, if that's what's here, that's what's here. You don't have to defend an image.
Like, I was seeking reality. I was seeking that thing that was real. I was seeking truth. And then the realization that reality is all there is. Even the appearance of unreality is reality. So truth is all there is. Even the appearance of untruth is truth. What can you do other than be? And you don't need to try and do that being. And within that being, things seem to get done. And that's all cool.
Exactly. You can't help but be. That's that's the bottom line. You can't help it. You are it. There's nothing to do or find or anything like that. But for as long as we believe there is, then do it. I mean, you can't get it wrong. That's something that I really spend a lot of time trying to help people understand. You really cannot get this wrong. You really can't get it wrong. It's like the necessary movements of consciousness as it unfolds itself and expresses itself and it exposes itself to itself. It presents itself in infinite form and variety, and it's all just interacting with itself, and you don't need to be any one way. Whatever it is, whatever's here, you can't help it, and you can't get it wrong.